one terror attack or the other every single day. The buzzword for PTI was tsunami.
Okay.
Tsunami aa raha hai. MQM in Karachi, heavily targeted. ANP in Karachi, heavily targeted. Pakistan People's Party in Karachi, in KP, heavily targeted. Tehreek-e-Taliban especially were targeting liberal progressive parties.
What was this reporting like in that time? Going to KP, where it was like heavily violent. There were 128 attacks.
In early 2000s, we were so used to covering terrorist attacks. So Bilawal didn't go to KP. Bilawal actually held virtual jalsas, just like Imran Khan is doing now, right? And that's because the terror threat was so severe against PPP as well.
Do you think that Bilawal is as popular as Imran was back in that day?
So Bilawal does not have a strong vote bank in the Punjab. Altaf Hussain makes a speech in 2016, then that creates space. The PTI was able to get some of that space. The 2013 elections would be bloodiest civilian transition.
As the 2024 elections are just a few days away, I've been wondering what happened in the last few elections in Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum, my name is Hawa Fazal and I'm a reporter at Dawn.com. Today we have with us journalist Amber Shamsi, with whom we'll discuss what happened in the 2013 elections.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me.
Amber, we'll jump right into
Let's go for it. There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. So I want to ask for first, this 2013 election was the first time a civilian government was handing over to another civilian government. Hopefully, we were deducing that. So it happened. What was the political sentiment like in the country?
The 2013 elections were some of the sort of big stories, some of the big, trends. If we're talking about, the first civilian handover of power, it's obviously something that was at the back of everybody's minds, which was fantastic, and it felt very surprising. It felt fantastic, but it wasn't. I think terrorism was top of mind because you had one terror attack or the other every single day. At that time, it was a very scary election in that sense, and that's an issue that needed resolving. And interestingly, just in terms of the politics around it, both the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and Imran Khan, as well as the Pakistan Muslimin Nawaz and Nawaz Sharif, their parties were in favor of dialogue with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, but because these weren't the parties that were being directly targeted and attacked. So that was a big sort of election issue that we faced. I think the other one was electricity and load shedding. So an interesting story that the caretaker government at that time had to announce that during the elections there won't be any load shedding in certain areas. This was how big it is. I mean, we forget like 10 years later, but that was a big issue. And there was also a big political issue. There was also a platform that, for instance, pmln promised to resolve that problem when they came into power. So that was a big issue. So the rise of Imran Khan and Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, that was also an interesting political question that was being discussed as a third party, as an alternative. Already there was talk about if he had any backing or support. But I think the 2011 huge Lahore rally, which became very famous as well, was a turning point, and you saw also a lot of electables that were.
What was whose rally was that? 2011?
That was the 2011 rally that Imran Khan held in Minar-e-Pakistan in Lahore. That was his first big jalsa. Up until 2011, Imran Khan was small fry party. He boycotted the 2008 elections. He was considered. There was a lot of young people and women who non-political people and who were a part of his party. With hopes that they would change the system, but it was seen as a fringe party up until 2011. It's 2011 when you finally thought, okay, well, maybe this is more of a mainstream party. He hadn't, like I said, 2008, Imran Khan had boycotted the election. So this was the first election that Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and Imran Khan were fully participating in as a party that was to be contended with. And even then, the buzzword for PTI was tsunami.
Oh, okay.
Tsunami aa raha hai and things like that. And there were a lot of jokes and memes about it. Yeah. not social media was an interesting thing as well. I mean, as a reporter, one of the stories that I picked up at that time was, well, how are different political parties using social media at that time? And this is 2013, and so you obviously have internet. And I believe 3G had not been launched. That was during the PMLN time. But obviously the PTI has always been the lead and front runner in digital politics, right? So using that as a springboard on how they're managing their campaign and what they're doing. And, again, back then there was a lot of trolling even then on Twitter. But I wanted to see how other political parties were prepared to use digital media or the internet or social media.
Were they?
They weren't. There were a lot of individual party leaders. So I followed Khurram Dastagir around on the campaign trail in 2013. Now I followed a few PTI people and I spoke to some key digital campaigning people within the PTI as well. But I followed some of the others. And it was individuals such as Khurram Dastagir who I went. So it was an interesting contrast for me with Khurram Dastagir, who's a PMLN leader. And Gujrawala, he was addressing a corner meeting, as it's called, which is not a full rally but a small meeting that you have in which you call people in that area. And he's full on Punjabi, very desi, very traditional style. But at the same time, he'd pull out his phone and he'd take pictures and he'd post it on Twitter.
Oh, okay, in the same time.
At the same time. So
wow.
That's it. There was no strategy.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So you could obviously clearly see PTI was still in the lead. So these were, Imran Khan kept talking about corruption, but I don't think it was as big an issue, I think, until it became later as well. The other big interesting thing, I think, was which political leaders were able to campaign.
Okay.
Which, because of the terrorist attacks that I spoke of, so who was being targeted? A lot of the nationalist parties, so just starting from the small parties, nationalist parties in Balochistan, JUIF, which is a smaller religious party as well. But among the bigger mainstream parties, ANP was in government in KP, but they were heavily targeted. MQM in Karachi, heavily targeted. ANP in Karachi, heavily targeted. Pakistan People's Party in Karachi, in KP, heavily targeted. And many of the leaders couldn't actually hold big rallies and campaigns that you associate with a political campaign. And when I was a reporter again, so I was based in Islamabad, and I would travel a lot to KP, and I sort of covered like how are these political parties campaigning in the face of such difficult, challenging times. There was a bomb blast every day, and I keep repeating this because it feels shocking now. There wasn't, and that's just the big attacks.
Okay.
But there were attacks and threats on rallies.
What was the reason behind these attacks? What was TTP's rationale, behind attacking them? Why did they?
The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan at that point in time, in 2013, has not been contained.
Okay.
So it was Operation Raddul Fasad, which came much later after talks failed and dialogue failed post 2014, that we contained some of the threat. We still saw some of the remnants in 2018 when Harun Bilor was killed, and we still see some of the remnants now when there's been a resurgence. But up until 2013, the problem had not been fully addressed. And they had not been contained. There were no large-scale operations. One of the solutions by two mainstream political parties, PMLN and PTI, was dialogue. Okay. But up until then, the rationale for the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is what? It's pressure and destabilization, which incidentally, I think they're doing more through social media now, but still.
Okay.
So the Tehreek-e-Taliban especially were targeting liberal progressive parties. Think of the parties that they were targeting, which is People's Party, ANP, and MQM. These are considered to be more liberal progressive parties in Pakistan. Now, why was it targeting JUIF? Simply because of internal rife over territory, right?
Oh, okay.
So those are deep connections. That's a slightly separate reason. So the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan had a political agenda, which is why it was conducting all these activities. Yes.
So reflecting on your own experience, which you were just telling us before I cut you off to understand what TTP is.
So much to say.
So what was this reporting like in that time? Going to KP, where it was like heavily violent. There were 128 attacks in total just during the elections. How did you do that? Wasn't there some sort of, pulling back, like, you shouldn't go, and, this is so scary? And
well, as a reporter, I feel like it's our responsibility to show people what's happening, and that's irrespective. I think I was working for an organization that was very fortunate that also took a lot of care to protect its journalists. Right? We were always told your story is not as important as your life. So, we obviously had those protections in place. But also bear in mind, as reporters in the mid and early 2000s, we were so used to covering terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
By then it was almost routine and very scary as well. And really, my purpose was I followed around a lot of ANP party workers. You see, some of their leaders couldn't campaign, right?
Okay.
So what they were doing was they had really small corner meetings, or individual workers, female workers, because they felt like they were safer. They take off their red caps when they went outside, and then they would go from house to house. So imagine, we think of what political parties have to go through in order to win elections. And I think I have a lot of respect. We talk about, political parties, parliament, they don't do their jobs in parliament. They send stupid people, and look at the kind of lawmaking they do. But and they only contest elections so they can make money and this and that. But party workers and a lot of leaders, you should see how much work and energy it takes to campaign for the elections, and they were doing it under severe threat to life. I mean, I think the Bilor family in particular has been picked off by the TTP.
Wow.
But and all their workers, like I said, would risk life, and they would take some precautionary measures, and it would, they would ask people to gather in small homes, and then they would address the rallies. So it was such a contrast to what I saw with PMLN, which was, or even Imran Khan.
Yeah.
Right? Which is that they could address these massive rallies and do all of those things, because the top leaders are really, really important in terms of which constituencies they visit, because that's what they're targeting. But these workers, maybe second, fourth tier, they do a lot of background work. And go around houses and hold corner meetings, and it was incredibly tough.
So, in the same area in KP, were PTI rallies different?
PTI rallies were again, I think, were pretty similar as well. You could, I think there was a sense in KP absolutely that because ANP is not able to campaign and they're being targeted, because People's Party was not able to campaign. So Bilawal didn't go to KP. Bilawal actually held virtual jalsas, just like Imran Khan is doing now, right?
Yeah.
And that's because the terror threat was so severe against PPP as well. And I think he held them from Dubai, if I remember correctly.
Dubai, was it acceptable to people that he was campaigning from Dubai? Wasn't it like...
He didn't win. I mean, People's Party lost pretty badly.
Yeah.
But so, but we had to understand the circumstances as well. Yeah. His mother had been assassinated. There are obvious terror threats. So it was the launch of Bilawal in a way, but not a great launch because he couldn't connect with people directly. But with PTI and Imran Khan, it was much easier for them. JI actually had a much easier job, and you saw that in the election results as well. So obviously ANP, people weren't happy with them, but also because they just couldn't campaign. People's Party just couldn't campaign.
Yeah, but like when PTI won and they had the whole of KP, what were people's expectations from them? Did they have very high expectations?
Absolutely. I mean, because PTI projected itself as a party of change. But we have to bear in mind in 2013 when they won as well, they didn't win with a full sweep that they did in 2018. So they had to make an alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami.
Oh, they were in alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami. I don't know.
Yeah, they were, and it reflected in the kind of curriculum that they presented and a lot of the lawmaking in PTI, in KP as well. So that was actually, I feel like, for the PTI, because it didn't win the 2013 election, KP was supposed to be an indicator of whether they could govern or not. And there's been a lot of sort of questions about their governance even in KP 10 years later, but they've maintained their stronghold and actually increased it. I've just gone around KP myself very recently, just a few weeks ago, and you can clearly see that his popularity in KP is as big as it was in 2018.
Wow.
So yeah, they've managed to, despite a lot of accusations of misgovernance. I mean, I know, I think KP in 2013 was known as a province that votes out people that they don't like, right? This was, and I think the PTI love affair has continued despite ups and downs.
Interesting. So let's talk about, the popular party in those elections, which was pmln. Why were they so popular?
So since the ouster of the general the military dictator Pervez Musharraf, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz had made an alliance with the Pakistan People's Party post 2008, but that didn't work out for very long. But they had Punjab. It's a cliche, but is the key to getting to the federal, right? And performance in Punjab is really important. So Shahbaz Sharif was chief minister. They picked up some so electricity and load shedding had actually heavily done a lot of protests against the Pakistan People's Party for not being able to address electricity shortages and load shedding.
Okay.
It also managed to deliver quite a few things in Punjab by that time. So I think that partially explains it. And I think perhaps there was a sense that because, like I said, the Pakistan people, Asif Zardari, by the way, could not campaign at that time. Makhdoom Amin Fahim.
Why couldn't they campaign?
Again, because of the terrorist threat. So
okay.
They were, everybody was scared, so they couldn't campaign. And this is the first election, which I think is interesting as well, where when I went out into the Punjab and talked to people, you could visibly see that they were shifting, right?
Okay.
So the shift to PTI, so PPP voters shifted to PTI.
Okay.
But the PMLN, because it hadn't had power in the federal level, and Punjab dominates, and they had, I think performance in Punjab was pretty decent.
Okay.
There's always questions, but pretty decent, and had successfully campaigned against the incumbent, which is Pakistan People's Party. And I think that's why they had a strong chance. Obviously, the challenger was PTI and Imran Khan, especially in Punjab, replacing Pakistan People's Party.
So we briefly talked about, Bilawal's launch. How was his launch in Sindh taken as? Because, this is their stronghold, and he was being presented as the politician for a first time in Sindh. What was did they really accept him? What were their thoughts?
Okay, well, I have to confess that I didn't cover elections in Sindh, so I wouldn't be able to say for absolute certainty whether he was acceptable or not. But I think he was too fresh, and there were a lot of internal issues that were reflected in Bilawal's launch. I remember 2013 and 2018. Yeah, so 2013, Bilawal was still very, very young, very green. A lot of security threats, he was holding virtual jalsas, so not any direct connection with the people. His Urdu was not great. Still is better now, but not great. So he didn't have experience, he was too green, he couldn't campaign. In fact, I would contrast with the kind of campaigning that he's done this time. It's his parallels are interesting, right? So Bilawal has been I think the single most political leader or head of his party who has campaigned the most in the 2024 elections. And it is the complete opposite of what he was able to do in 2013. And you saw that where the Pakistan People's Party lost Punjab and they lost it to PTI, really.
They've really lost in Sindh as well. They
lost in Sindh again. It's because it was incumbency, it was terrorism, it was Bilawal not being able to connect with people. So, he was still, his training wheels were still on. So I think that's partially explains what happened in post-2013.
Can you tell me what were the events that happened in 2013 which defined the elections?
the events that defined the elections, I say that it would be some of the bigger terror attacks, like the attacks on MQM in Karachi, just like 3 weeks before the election. That's one. And I think and the attack on the Bilor family as well, rally, that was another one. Imran Khan, just the day before the election, falling off the stage.
What happened there? What happened there?
Yes, I was in the newsroom. I was actually not in Pakistan. I was working with the BBC, and I was in the newsroom, and we were obviously tracking the elections as newsrooms can be. By that time, I'd done my election coverage as a reporter, and then I was sent to London to assist with the production and all of BBC's news outlets and BBC Urdu's news outlets. And so there was a time difference. So that happened at night in Pakistan, and we were still waking up. And it was. I still remember the newsroom, shock and horror.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, there was shock and horror. What just happened? Is he okay? That was another defining. And I remember, I think that it was really good to see that at that time, pmln and Nawaz Sharif, this is a few days before the election, actually called off all the negative campaigning against Imran Khan.
Oh, wow.
And immediately issued a lot of sort of sympathy tweets as well. So, I don't know if there's an English word for this, but there's a sense that he maintained what I would say is ravadari, which is, I guess loosely translated is a kind of, I don't even know how to translate that into English, to be honest, but it is a way of behavior in which you respect the other person, right? Even if you're opponents. So that was really nice to see. But yes, there was that moment of fear. Is he all right? Does he have a head injury? Will it be permanent? I was going back over some of my notes and archives and stories, and there were indications that Imran Khan would fall, because he'd already sort of stumbled in Faisalabad as well, because he'd been heavily campaigning right across the country. And there was a lot of people who supported the PTI felt like this was his moment. We think it's possible that he may win. But to be honest, the PMLN was frankly in a stronger position. And then you saw the whole rigging allegations later, but we won't get to that just yet. But so that was another sort of key event. I think the other big event that we haven't spoken about, and again has parallels with 2018 and 2024. There's always that one election. In an election, there's that one political party or leader who is facing a lot of legal issues and is in jail. This time, it was Pervez Musharraf.
Oh, he was in jail.
He was in jail, but slightly different because military dictator. He was in Jagsharzad, which was declared a sub-jail in his farmhouse. So at least it wasn't jail. It was in Adiala or Adak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that was another big Musharraf and his fate and a reckoning with the past is another sort of big issue and topic that came up. So the big event that I would link to Musharraf is that he was, an election tribunal said that Musharraf can't contest elections.
Oh, he wanted to contest in the elections.
Of course. So Musharraf came back from abroad, I think in March of that year. And there was a whole thing about how Musharraf is so popular, people remember, and things like that. And he already launched his political party. Fawad Chaudhry was one of the spokespersons, incidentally.
Okay.
And he came back and at the Karachi airport. So he has a bit of a following in Karachi and Chitral, where he contested, I think, before as well. So there's nobody to receive him at the airport.
Literally nobody.
There was hardly 4 people, I don't know, because he expected it'd be this, huge welcome back, as a lot of leaders think, I go into exile, come back. There's got to be hordes of people to welcome me back, but there's nobody there.
Why was he so unpopular? Did his act of not letting Benazir, there is a strong accusation on him that it led to Benazir's, that he was involved. Did it still stay till 2013? People were still pissed off in 2013?
Well, of course, there were. You see, as I said, that there's always, in the election, there's always this political past that Pakistanis have to reckon with and try to deal with. So Musharraf came back. He had so many cases against him. He had the Benazir Bhutto assassination case. He had the Akbar Bhatti assassination case. There was the arrest of judges when he imposed emergency case. The judiciary was
Why
it's
did he
we're
come
gonna
back?
get you, we're gonna get you. Because a lot of leaders feel that their popularity or their links with the military will save them.
Okay.
But there's a moment when everybody's hands are off and you're on your own. And that's what happened with Musharraf. And I remember even then Nawaz Sharif during his rallies, he was talking about how I will never forgive Musharraf. And that cost Nawaz Sharif during his tenure as well in terms of his relationship with the military. But, that was a big topic and the big event. In fact, another big event that was linked to Musharraf as well, and less so with the elections, was one of the main prosecutors in the Benazir Bhutto assassination case was killed in Islamabad, Zulfikar. So, these are some of the sort of key big events that I kind of remember that kind of, to me, define the election in many ways. And then the caretaker saying there's going to be no load shedding on the, it's like, oh, thank God. there will be light.
Like, was the light there?
Yes, I was not in Pakistan, but my family told me that apparently that in a lot of areas there was electricity. We didn't have any load shedding. We were very happy.
Wow.
Because you have to remember, it's May. It's scorching. It's scorching in most of Pakistan, so it gets really hot.
So let's say if we have to give a headline to the elections of 2013, a summary of it, what would be your headline?
My headline for the 2013 elections would be bloodiest civilian transition.
Oh, wow. True, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was an extremely bloody civilian transition. At what cost? Where I see that there is a lot of mainstream political parties that couldn't campaign freely, so it wasn't a free and fair election, not because because of terrorism. So it was uneven. The level playing field that we talk about now, it was as uneven as it is now, but for entirely different reasons. And I think the MQM, ANP, People's Party, as well as the nationalist parties, I think Qawmi Watan, Nationalist Party, they really lost out in many ways. I think the National Party did well align themselves with the Pakistan Muslim Nawaz later, but it was an incredibly bloody election, bloody transition.
So if you had to draw one parallel between that elections and this elections, which is there, what would you say?
I think the two big parallels that I would draw between the 2024 election and the 2013 election is that as in 2024, you have political parties that are not fully able to go to the public and ask for their vote. They do not have the freedom to campaign as other political parties do. That's one parallel. The second parallel would be that there is one political leader who has security issues, who is in jail, who's facing a number of cases, and we hear that he will finally get people will finally get justice, or the cases will conclude. So that's the second one. Those are sort of the two, and I think, and the third sort of parallel I would roughly draw. It's not such a great parallel. I'm adding to my list now, which is I think that just as Imran Khan was heavily campaigning in 2013, I can see that Bilawal is heavily campaigning in 2024, much more than he was able to do 10 years ago.
Okay, so reflecting, do you think that Bilawal is as popular as Imran was back in that day?
I mean, that's a difficult question. We have to remember that there are a lot of key differences between Bilawal and Imran Khan. So Bilawal does not have a strong vote bank in the Punjab. He lost it to People's Party lost it to PTI and hasn't been able to get it back.
Okay.
That's one key difference. The second key difference is that the Pakistan People's Party has really made a lot of effort to regain Sindh and maintain control over it, right? Through local body elections, through campaigning, through candidates. So I think that maintaining that stronghold has taken a bit of work. And it's also been because you've seen the shift in urban Sindh in terms of parties, right? So MQM post 2013, Altaf Hussain makes a speech in 2016. He's off the radar, right? So then that creates space. The PTI was able to get some of that space, the MQM vote, even though Ada Hussain boycotted the 2018 elections, and you see that reflected in the fall in turnout as well.
Yeah.
So it's ironic where you had a higher turnout in 2013 with so many terrorist attacks, but a lower turnout comparatively in 2018.
Oh, there was a turnout difference.
Yeah.
I mean, there was also this talk, Imran Khan refused to accept the results of the election.
Nobody accepts results. Even Pakistan People's Party disputed the results post 2013. So again, differences between Bilawal and Imran. And obviously, I think Bilawal does not have the kind of wide popularity that Imran Khan does. He does struggle in many ways with connecting with a wider population, right? It's partly language, partly ethnicity, partly a bias against dynastic politics, right? So for all these reasons, he doesn't have the kind of cricket hero status or celebrity status that Imran Khan did. So it's been a struggle. But what Bilawal does have over Imran Khan now is obviously some experience in ministries, right?
Yeah.
And how these things are done, and sort of the backing and the grooming and the clever politicking that Zardari is able to do. So I think that's some of the key differences. But, it's good to see that he's able to campaign and he's doing a lot of work.
So if you had to, summarize the change in Bilawal of that time when he was launched and now?
Bilawal's language skills have gotten much, much better. I think his language skills are really poor. I think he's able to be much more witty in Urdu than he used to be. He's still hitting out at pmln because just around the elections they tend to do that, but they obviously make peace later. So yeah, that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed.
So I think his experience shows much more. He feels like he's much more confident. And also around 2013, it felt as if it was a soft launch, because he would come to politics and then he would leave politics, not leave politics, but he would sort of disappear for a while as well.
Okay.
It's like he wasn't fully committed. That was a feeling that I got back then as well. But I think that you see that he is now committed more to politics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't win, we can expect him in the opposition? Or he'll just run away again?
No, I mean, I think Bilawal, like I said, has at least, his first stint in Parliament was a good one. He was chairing the Human Rights Committee, and he did it very well because I attended one of those hearings as well for the Human Rights Committee that he was chairing. He has been groomed. He understands parliamentary politics, which is again very stark contrast to Imran Khan. He just does not like parliamentary politics. The presidential system where he has say and he doesn't have to talk to people who he doesn't agree with. So I feel like in that sense, Bilawal has come a long way since from 10 years ago. That doesn't mean he's popular or he's more popular, but I think that he has a better shot. His party has a better shot, and he has a better shot at maybe finding some way to power. It takes all of these things. It takes some popularity. It takes work. It takes clever political management, which his father is able to do, and experience.
So we ended the 2013 discussion with Amber Shamsi, and it was one of the most interesting ones I've had until now. If you would like to know about the 2018 elections, we've been discussing them with Zibunasa Barki. So stay tuned on DawnNews English, and this podcast is being done in collaboration with Dawn.com. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.